Hello, hello. Joseph here. It's another week, and I've got another PDH deck tech for you. This is week 8, so now we're in the Rakdos Guild with black and red, and our commander today is the Slaughter Priest of Mogis. Slaughter Priest is a 2/2 Minotaur Shaman for a black and a red that has, whenever you sacrifice a permanent, Slaughter Priest of Mogis gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Also, you can spend 2 mana and sacrifice another creature or an enchantment to give Slaughter Priest first strike until end of turn. This design is very clean and straightforward. We want to be sacrificing things in order to pump our commander. And initially, I was planning to build this in a very typical aristocrat style, with creatures that sacrifice easily, such as Eldrazi Spawn, and then capitalize on that with our typical aristocrat cards like Falconwrath Noble. But then I realized I covered a lot of this strategy already just in the Shadowwing Laureate deck from last week. So I looked again at that second ability of our commander, how it could sacrifice enchantments. And I thought, can I build an enchantment theme here with cards like Seal of Doom or Inferno Fist? And that would be pretty neat and unusual for Rakdos colors. But then I realized I was overlooking something that was staring me in the face. The language on Slaughter Priest says permanent. It doesn't specify what kind, or, most importantly, non-token. So I decided to really focus on token permanents that we will be constantly sacrificing and then replacing for value. In other words, treasures. These tokens can act as ramp, can trigger huge amounts of synergies, and can sacrifice themselves for free on demand. In short, they are the perfect focus for our strategy. But now, let's look at the deck. Our strategy, we're going to load up with a ton of disposable artifacts that we can sacrifice for value, and in turn pump our commander, which we will then use to take out our opponents. So, first things first, how are we going to be generating treasures? Luckily, treasures have been getting a lot of support from the last several sets, so we've got lots of options to choose from. We have one-off treasure generation with Impulsive Pilfer and Contract Killing. Impulsive Pilfer is a 1/1 Goblin Pirate for red mana that has, when it dies, create a treasure token. It also has Encore for 3 and a red, so if we're in a late game multiplayer situation, we can use this to generate 2 or 3 treasures in the late game. Contract Killing is a sorcery for 3 black that has destroy target creature, and then it also will give us 2 more treasures, so it really is a net mana cost of 3 mana, but will then also give us those treasure benefits. We also have the potential for continuous treasure generation with Goldvein Pick, Hoarding Ogre, and Undercity Scrounger. Goldvein Pick is an equipment for 2 mana that gives equipped creature +1/+1, and also whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Hoarding Ogre doesn't even have to connect, it just has to swing. And whenever it swings, it will get us at least 1 treasure token, possibly 2, and on the very rare occasion, 3 treasures. And Undercity Scrounger will give us value without ever putting itself in danger, because it can just tap to create a treasure token, just with the restriction that a creature had to die this turn. We can even try to get a little lucky with Tavern Scoundrel, a 1/3 human rogue for 1 and a red that has, whenever you win a coin flip, create 2 treasure tokens. And we can pay 1 and tap it and sacrifice another permanent to flip a coin. So with this staying on the field, we can take advantage of its ability to potentially multiply the number of treasures that we have on the field. And even if it fails, we'll still be sacrificing a permanent and therefore pumping our commander. But what are some other tokens that we can take advantage of? Well, we can also look at blood tokens from the new Innistrad set. And we're going to generate them with one-off effects like Blood Fountain, an artifact for a black mana that enters with a blood token, but then can also sacrifice itself to return up to 2 target creature cards from our graveyard to our hand. We've also got Continuous Protection with Ceremonial Knife, an equipment for 1 mana that has equipped creature gets +1/+0, and has, whenever this creature deals combat damage, period, doesn't have to be to a creature or player specifically, we get a blood token. And finally, we've got a little bit of food tokens, not really supported in these colors at this rarity level, but we can generate them continuously with Giant Skewer, an equipment for 1 and a black that gives equipped creature +2/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a creature, create a food token. Between all of these effects, we're going to generate a huge amount of artifact tokens over time. Each of these is going to be a source of value in themselves, acting as ramp, card selection, or life gain. But we're not going to stop there. We've also got other artifacts that are going to sit on the battlefield for value, such as Ichor Wellspring, Sleeping Dart, and Wedding Invitation. All of these are artifacts for 2 mana that, when they enter the battlefield, will draw us a card, so they're always going to replace themselves. Then, once they're on the field, we can either sacrifice them for something, or we can use them for their own effect. Ichor Wellspring, when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, draws us a second card. Sleeper Dart can tap and sacrifice itself to prevent target creature from untapping next turn, and Wedding Invitation can tap and sacrifice itself to give target creature unblockable this turn. So these are going to come down and generate value, and then we can either use them for their secondary effect, or we can take advantage of them with other cards. So what other cards will we have that will synergize with our artifacts? Well, we've got cards that will aid us in every step of the artifact life cycle, as it were. For entering, we've got Reckless Fireweaver and Glaze Fiend. Reckless Fireweaver is a 1/3 human artificer for 1 and a red that has whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. And Glaze Fiend is a 0/1 illusion that has flying, and whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Glaze Fiend gets +2/+2 until end of turn. For staying on the field, we've got Hunger in the Nim and Tidy Conclusion. Hunger of the Nim is a sorcery for 1 and a black that has target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each artifact you control. And a Tidy Conclusion is an instant for 3 black that has destroy target creature, you gain 1 life for each artifact you control. Then for sacrificing those artifacts, we have Destructive Digger, a 3/2 goblin for 2 and a red that has pay 3 and tap and sacrifice an artifact or a land to draw a card. Or we can use the artifacts for removal with Orcish Vandal, a 1/1 orc warrior for 1 and a red that has tap and sacrifice an artifact for it to deal 2 damage to any target. This can come in really handy destroying a lot of technical creatures that our opponents might have on the board. Or we can use it to just throw our artifacts straight at our opponents and deal damage to them directly. And then for when our artifacts are sent to the graveyard, we have Disciple of the Vault, a 1/1 human cleric for a black mana that has whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. So this will trigger not just for our own artifacts, but also for any other artifact our opponents might be sending to the graveyard. Finally, we're going to have Recursion to keep the fun going with Workshop Assistant, and 1/2 construct for 3 mana that has, when it dies, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. So, how are we going to win? With all of these synergies, we're going to have a lot of artifacts cycling around on our field to generate lots of value, but there's only so much we can slow grind our opponents. If we don't get explosive and kill our enemies, they're going to do that to us. So, how do we get explosive? Remember, all of these sacrifices are going to pump our commander's power by a lot, but interestingly, its resting power is going to be 2. That means we can take advantage of effects like Goblin Smuggler and Thieves' Tools. Both of these will make our commander unblockable. Then, when we swing in, we can sacrifice a bunch of artifacts at instant speed to pump our commander in time for the damage step in order to take out an opponent. Alternatively, we can make sure our commander's damage gets through with flying, like with Wings of Hubris, or using trample, like with Lightning Spear. Now, we do need to worry about protecting our commander. In particular, we need to be careful because only his power gets pumped, but his toughness stays at 2, so nearly any chump blocker could take him out. We could, of course, make sure to keep up 2 mana to activate his second ability, sacrificing a spare creature to grant him first strike and make up for that. Or we could do something else. Now, anyone who's seen a few of my videos knows I'm a huge fan of regenerate abilities, and that's exactly what we're going to be looking at here. We've got Dark Privilege, a card that's practically made for this deck. It's an aura enchantment for 1 and a black that gives enchanted creature +1/+1, and sacrifice a creature, regenerate enchanted creature. So this will protect our commander as well as giving him that sacrifice pump. But to really protect our commander and make sure he swings in, we're going to use Whisper Silk Cloak, an equipment for 3 mana that gives target creature unblockable and Shroud. Now, just in case our commander does get removed, we do have some replacement creatures that will become absolutely massive, with Defiant Salvager and Nim Shrieker. Defiant Salvager is a 2/2 Aetherborn Artificer for 2 and a black that has sacrifice an artifact or creature to give Defiant Salvager a +1/+1 counter. Nim Shrieker is an 0/1 zombie for 3 and a black that has flying and gets +1/+0 for each artifact we control. So Nim Shrieker is going to become absolutely huge, but it's going to be extremely delicate with that 1 toughness. However, it does have flying, and almost any game there's going to be at least one opponent that doesn't have any flyers to block this with. Once we have these creatures with high power, we can use them to attack directly. And if, for some reason, we can't swing in, we can deal the damage directly using Rite of Consumption or Soul's Fire. Rite of Consumption is a sorcery for 1 and a black that has sacrifice a creature. Rite of Consumption deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target player, while we gain life equal to that damage. While Soul's Fire is an instant for 2 and a red that has target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to any target. We don't even have to sacrifice the creature. If we time it right, we can even take out 2 of our opponents on the same turn using both combat and these spells. So, that is my Slaughter Priest of Mogis deck. One thing I really like about this commander is that it's so open-ended that you can take several viable directions with it, and I encourage you all to build your own versions with whatever focus you'd like. Our artifact-based shell is really going to give us a lot of value and disposable permanents that we can sacrifice for a myriad of effects, all of which are going to benefit our commander and make him huge at a moment's notice. This deck is going to run us at about $20. The complete deck list is in the description, so take a look and let me know what you think. Please like and subscribe and come back next week when we tackle one of my strongest decks in the Selesnya Guild.